Let me thank Heather, Barbara, Nicole, Satsi, and thanks so much to everyone for this opportunity. I hope everyone is safe and well. I know these are difficult times, and really appreciate your participation. As Barbara noted, I helped stand up the MIT Energy Initiative in 2007. I believe that academia has a very, very important role to play in the clean energy transition, and Yale's efforts are very important in this regard. So are MIT's, I have to say that, okay, for my old institution. I've known Barbara, I think, for probably about 25 years now. She and I have been working together off and on energy policy for over 2 decades. I first met Barbara, I was at the energy department for the 8 years of the Clinton administration as well. So 4 years in Obama, 8 years in Clinton. And as I said, we have engaged in energy policy for a long time together. And so she's probably heard what I'm going to say a few times. At any rate, thank you so much again. And let me, I'm going to read you just to give some framing here. The alarming signals from that the scientists are telling about. 9 of 10 warmest years on record in 2005 to 2016. Arctic is warming 2 to 3 times faster. Sea level global average have risen 7 to 8 inches since 1900. That could reach 1 to 4 feet by 2100. In May 2019, this one blew me away. Atmospheric CO2 concentrations reached 415 ppm, the highest level in at least 800,000 years. It was the 800,000 years, that was amazing. At the current rate of warming, the planet will reach the lower target coming out of Paris of 1.5 degrees by as early as 2030. So it's staring us right in the face. According to the IPCC, the difference between, there are substantial differences, I'm not going to read them now, between 1.5 and 2 degrees, species lost, et cetera, An increase of 1.2 degree or 2 degrees in global average temperature means that 37% of the world's population will experience extreme heat. Water shortages come with that as well. 2/3 of the major emitting nations are not on track to meet their targets. And then finally, in 2018, US CO2 emissions went up. In 2019, they came down. So we're making a little progress. I wanted to give you some perspective. This is a scenario from the International Energy Agency. 2018 actual numbers, 2040, what the numbers will be by fuel in their sustainable development scenario. So just to give you some idea, the coal goes down 61%, oil down 32%, gas only goes down 3%, and it's still about 25% of total energy demand. Nuclear goes up 62%, but it's about a third of gas. Renewables up 215%, and biomass actually goes down. So, and sustainable development scenario for IEA, that is 1.5 degrees by 2070. Okay, not 2060, but everyone meets their targets, blah, 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 and that's what that is. So a lot of gas, a lot of renewables, a lot of nuclear in that scenario, and still, quite frankly, a lot of oil. The slides are not advancing. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to turn now to the United States. This is electricity generation from selected fuels in the US, 2020 and then 2050. Again, what you see there, natural gas, 36%. By 2050, it goes down ever so slightly. Renewables go up from 19 to 38%. Nuclear goes down 19 to 12%. Coal goes way down from 24 to 13%. So again, you're seeing a pattern there, natural gas and renewables. And let me skip it. The renewable electricity generation, just very quickly, solar surpasses wind. It goes from 15% to 46%. I put this on here for Nicole, okay? So solar as a percentage of total renewables goes way up. Wind goes down. Hydro goes way down, et cetera, et cetera. This is IEA just put out a report on COVID and the employment in the energy sector. And this is construction and manufacturing jobs created per $1 million of capital investment. So it's jobs per million. And you see there the dark blue construction, light blue manufacturing, brown is total. I don't know, I guess they couldn't break these out. And, but important when you look at this, efficiency in buildings, retrofits, new buildings and industry, huge number of jobs in efficiency. We need to pay attention to that. Again, solar PV, you're seeing a lot of jobs created in solar PV. In hydrogen production, something we're very interested in, I'll say why in a minute, and CCUS there. And then up above, also you've got your existing and new grids. I think is important for this discussion. So then let me go very quickly through this. We at EFI have crosswalked conventional energy jobs to clean energy jobs. And how might those skill sets, et cetera, and including the innovation infrastructures, et cetera, be used from conventional energy and in clean energy? And you see here, those are across the top, oil refineries, gas generation, oil and gas pipelines, et cetera, et cetera. And then over on the side, biofuels. Hydrogen, I mentioned again, I think that hydrogen is very, very important. I'll say more about that again. I couldn't get the slide, the figure all in one slide, but negative emissions technology, CCUS. And I'll tell you right now, the skill set for oil production is very, very similar to what you need for CCUS, pipelines and subsurface. And so we're trying to figure out how we can crosswalk these to clean energy jobs. And then renewable natural gas, that's from biofuels. It's the only way we saw to decarbonize the agriculture sector, but you can use that in gas systems. So renewable natural gas figures in there as well. What you see coming up here is, this is wind and solar generation. Wind is blue, solar is red. And the numbers that this is every day of wind and solar generation in California in 2017. We did a major study of California. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. But the numbers that you see coming up are the days in 1 year, and these are actual data of no wind in California. 90 days in California with no wind in 1 year. You saw 10 days in a row, 7 days in a row, 11 days in a row. Seasonal, but 11 days in a row with no wind. And I'm going to make a point here. Battery storage, grid scale storage is 4 hours. So, and you've got 11 days in a row with no wind. Battery storage is not going to address that problem. It's great for ancillary services. 11 days with no wind, no way. The conclusion of this study is actually that you need fuel. And this was a technology study. It was not a policy analysis. We assumed California's 2030 and mid-century targets. What you saw, and we looked at it by sector, this is emissions reduction potential. Okay, and there you see in million metric tons, megatons of CO2e. For the electricity sector, by 2030, NGCCs with CCUS was by far the biggest emissions reduction potential. Efficiency, CAFE standards in transportation, CCUS in industry, and I can't see what's behind there. So I see faces, however. So CCUS by 2030, industry and electricity, CCUS was a hugely important option, a technology option. And this just shows you where the national sequestration opportunities are in the United States. We're doing a follow-on study for CCUS in California and go back and recall the jobs I showed you for investments in this. This is, let's switch to hydrogen. One of the conclusions, the 90 days with no wind, is that you need a fuel. Grid scale battery storage is not going to solve the 90 days with no wind. Hydrogen is another fuel, okay? And hydrogen could very well be the green gas, that fuel that you need to reliably run the grid. But and this is we were looking at hydrogen hubs, and this is the ports of LA and Long Beach. And what this said is one central steam reforming facility and one central electrolysis facility, okay, two ways to make hydrogen, could give you half of the port's drayage fleet. That's fueling those the trucks, et cetera, that are at the port. The entire port's electricity requirement, 80% of the petroleum refiner demand for fuel, 10%, this is Southern California gases, residential gas demand, and CO2 sequestration equivalent to half of an average coal plant's emissions. So this is showing you one of the options. We think you need to invest heavily in this. Right now, you're going to have to capture the carbon because the cheapest way to make that hydrogen is from natural gas, and it emits carbon. Electrolysis, 4 to 5 times more expensive. We do not see in the foreseeable future how you can run your grid and all of this without a fuel. And industry, you need fuel in general because you need high quality process heat. I'm going to switch gears here. I'm almost done. I swear, Barbara. Okay, I can see Barbara getting anxious. This is switching gears entirely. This is from a World Bank study on the metals and minerals demand for wind, solar, and batteries. Okay, the wind and solar are free. Conversion to useful energy requires a lot of metals and minerals, 600% in general, more than we are using right now. And I wanted to give you some idea of what that concentration is. Okay, this is lithium, and these are in metric tons of reserves. United States, 35,000 metric tons of lithium reserves. Chile, 8 million metric tons. Australia, 2.7 million metric tons. So cobalt, a major ingredient in batteries for vehicles and grid scale. US, 38,000 metric tons. Congo, 3.4 million metric tons. And Australia, 1.2 million metric tons. And there you have nickel. You can vary the amounts of cobalt and nickel. Nickel, 110,000 metric tons in the US, 21 million metric tons in Indonesia. And let me say something about this. These are very concentrated, scary numbers, but these are not fuel costs like you see for gas generation or gasoline in cars. They're not fuel costs and fuel concentration. These are capital costs that we're talking about for your clean energy technologies. So the lifespan of the technology becomes very, very important in order to understand the draw on these resources. So it's not the same thing. And I think we need to be very careful and fully understand the lifespan of these technologies, which I don't have time to tell you my story. This is the World Bank's conclusion. Okay, a green technology future is materially intensive. And these are not rare earths. Everyone thinks they're rare earths. Rare earths are one of 21 categories. It's stuff like cobalt, lithium, aluminum, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to skip this because I'm running out of time. We need to think about supporting an environmentally responsible domestic mining in the United States is one of the things we need to do. And then I mentioned crosswalking skill sets. The only truly global supply chain manager that we have are oil companies, global oil companies. translating their knowledge of supply chains and their relationships around the world could have a lot of value in this clean energy future. And then finally, I'm going to go through this very quickly. I apologize. These are, this is unemployment claims in the US. And I only have done it through the first week of June. I ran out of time. Okay, these are total unemployment claims in the top 10 states. Not surprisingly, these are large states. When you normalize those claims as a percent of workforce there, it's a very different list. Georgia had almost 50% of its workforce file unemployment claims. And down here, total unemployment claims then was almost 41 million people in the United States. But then I crosswalked this to the numbers, the top 10 states for employment in key energy categories. We're talking about COVID and energy jobs, clean energy jobs. Those are natural gas and oil fuel jobs. Not surprisingly, Texas is #1, okay? Those are actuals, not a percent of workforce. California, I bet it would surprise California, it's #4 for gas and oil jobs, fuel jobs. As a percent of workforce, efficiency jobs, actual, gas and oil, power generation jobs, actual, solar generation, actual, as a percent of workforce, wind generation, actual, and a percent of workforce. And I looked at 2 states on this list that have very, very different political basis. Okay, so first I looked at California. California, #4 in the country in oil and gas fuel jobs, 1 in efficiency, 1 in gas generation, they don't have any oil generation there, 1 in solar generation, 3 in solar generation as a percent of workforce, and #5 in wind, 5 or 6, 5. Then you look at Texas, very, very different base political differences there. Texas, #1, not surprisingly, in gas and oil fuel jobs, #7 in as a percent of workforce, #2 in efficiency jobs, #3 in gas generation jobs, #5 in solar generation jobs, #1 in wind generation jobs, and #7 in percent of workforce, so wind generation. The point I want to make here, we're going to need an energy stimulus when this is all over, and we're going to need stimulus package like we had in 2008, 2009. This to me shows the basis of the coalitions that you need in order to get a meaningful stimulus package passed. And 2 very diametrically opposed states politically have very, very similar issues and interests in both conventional energy jobs and, importantly for this discussion, in clean energy jobs. And thank you so much. I'm sorry I talked too long, okay?